John only knocked on Max's door to apologize for missing the engagement party. That was all. But when the heavy mahogany door swung open, the woman standing there wasn't Max's mysterious new fiancée. It was John's own wife, Neka. The same wife who had supposedly drowned in a tragic ferry accident 3 years ago. She was wearing Max's massive diamond engagement ring. And the terrifying part wasn't just that she was alive. It was that she didn't look shocked to see him. She simply smiled, pressed a manicured finger to her lips, and whispered, "You're early. If you've ever grieved over a grave, only to find out your tears were funding someone else's luxury, stay with me." Hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because the betrayal inside this mansion is unforgivable, and the revenge is going to leave you absolutely breathless. 3 years earlier, John's world had ended on the murky shores of the Lagos Lagoon. He was a hard-working, honest contractor, completely devoted to his beautiful wife, Neka. His best friend and business partner, Max, was everything John wasn't: flashy, ruthless, and obsessed with high society wealth. When the news broke that a commercial ferry had capsized during a sudden storm, John rushed to the docks. Neka's name was on the passenger manifest, her handbag washed ashore 2 days later. Her body was never recovered. John was utterly destroyed. It was Max who held him up at the memorial service. It was Max who paid for the empty casket. And it was Max who helped a grieving, paralyzed John process the massive life insurance policy Neka had taken out just months before the accident. John couldn't bear to touch the blood money, so he gave the entire payout to Max to invest in a new real estate development, asking only that a wing of the building be named after his late wife. That real estate development made Max a billionaire. Now, 3 years later, John was standing in the foyer of Max's sprawling Lekki estate, staring at the ghost of the woman he had mourned every single day. Neka grabbed John by the wrist and pulled him inside, closing the heavy door behind him. The house was a monument to extreme wealth: Italian marble, crystal chandeliers, imported silk curtains. "Neka," John choked out, his knees trembling. "How? You're alive. Where have you been? Max told me you were gone." "Max told you what you needed to hear," Neka said. Her voice was perfectly calm. There were no tears in her eyes, no guilt. She walked over to a velvet sofa, sat down, and crossed her legs, adjusting the massive diamond on her left hand. "I don't understand," John said, his voice breaking. "Were you kidnapped? Did you lose your memory?" "I lost my patience, John," Neka replied, her tone chillingly flat. "I was tired of waiting for you to become a king. You were always so honest, so satisfied with just enough. I didn't want enough. I wanted the world." Max understood that. Max had the vision, but he didn't have the capital. So, we made our own capital. The words hit John like physical blows. He stumbled backward until his back hit the cold marble wall. They had faked the accident. Neka had never been on that ferry. She had dropped her handbag on the dock and walked away. They had used John's blinding grief to manipulate him into handing over the life insurance money. Money that became the foundation of Max's entire empire. John had literally funded his best friend stealing his wife. "You let me bury an empty box," John whispered, the horror tightening his chest. "You watched me weep." "And you survived," Neka said, standing up. She walked over to an oak console table, opened a drawer, and pulled out a thick leather briefcase. She set it on the table and popped the golden latches. It was packed to the brim with stacks of crisp, uncirculated cash. "Max is coming home in 20 minutes, Neka said, pushing the briefcase toward him. "This is 50 million naira, a parting gift. You are a good man, John, but good men don't build empires. Take the money, go start a new life, and let the dead stay dead." John looked at the briefcase. He looked at the woman he had loved more than his own life. For 3 years he had felt nothing but a hollow, agonizing emptiness. But standing in that grand foyer, the grief instantly evaporated. In its place, a cold, focused fire ignited in his veins. He didn't scream. He didn't flip the table. He simply looked at the money, then looked Neka dead in the eyes. "You're right," John said quietly. Good men don't build empires. He turned his back on the money, opened the heavy mahogany door, and walked out into the humid evening air. He didn't go to the police. Not yet. If he went to the police with just a story, Max's high-priced lawyers would bury him in injunctions. Max had the judges in his pocket. John needed a stage where Max's money couldn't save him. And the following Saturday was the wedding of the decade. Max and his mysterious new bride from abroad were hosting their traditional engagement ceremony at the most exclusive event center in the city. The hall was draped in gold and emerald. The governors, the media, and the corporate titans were all seated at the front. Max and Neka sat on matching velvet thrones on the high table, dressed in magnificent, heavily embroidered traditional attire. The music was blaring. The champagne was flowing. Then, the heavy brass doors at the back of the hall swung open. The music didn't stop, but a ripple of whispers began at the back of the room and swept forward like a wave. John walked slowly down the center aisle. He wasn't wearing a tailored suit. He was wearing the simple black morning clothes he had worn for 3 years. Max saw him first. The billionaire's smile froze. He stood up from his throne, signaling to his private security team lined against the walls. But John wasn't alone. Flanking him on his left was the Inspector General of Police. Flanking him on his right was the lead fraud investigator for the National Insurance Commission. John stopped at the foot of the high table. The band finally realized what was happening, and the music sputtered to an awkward, echoing halt. Thousands of eyes watched in dead silence. John picked up a microphone resting on the edge of the stage. "I apologize for the interruption, elders and distinguished guests." John's voice echoed through the massive hall, steady and thunderous. "I have not come to eat. I have come to reclaim a stolen investment." Neka gripped the arms of her throne, the color completely draining from her face. 3 years ago, John continued, looking directly at Max, my best friend stood by me as I wept over the lagoon. He took my late wife's insurance payout to build his real estate company. Today, he is a titan of industry, but there is a problem with his foundation. John pointed directly at the bride. The woman sitting on that throne is not an heiress from abroad. Her name is Neka. She is my legally wedded wife. She faked her death to defraud the insurance commission, and the man sitting next to her used the proceeds of that crime to build every building with his name on it. Pandemonium erupted in the hall. Camera flashes began firing like strobe lights. Max grabbed the microphone from the podium. "This man is insane. He is grieving and delusional. Security, remove him." "I am not delusional, Max," John said calmly, pulling a stack of documents from his jacket. "This is the flight manifest from the private charter Neka took to Dubai on the exact day of the ferry accident, paid for by your corporate account. And this is the biometric scan she had to provide at the embassy 2 weeks ago to re-enter the country under a forged passport." Max froze. His security team stopped moving. You can buy a lot of things in this world, but you cannot buy your way out of undeniable biometric proof delivered in front of the entire national press. The Inspector General stepped forward and nodded to his officers. Police swarmed the high table. Max's hands were pulled behind his back, the gold cuffs of his traditional attire crumpling as the steel handcuffs snapped shut. Neka screamed as 2 female officers pulled her down from her velvet throne, her heavy coral beads scattering across the marble floor. John stood perfectly still as the billionaires, the politicians, and the media watched the golden couple being dragged out of the hall in absolute disgrace. Because the insurance money was proven to be the seed capital for Max's company, the court seized his entire portfolio. The assets were liquidated to repay the fraud, and the remainder, the legal returns of the initial investment, were awarded to the original policyholder, John. Max traded his Italian marble mansion for a concrete cell. Neka lost the wealth she had sold her soul to acquire, trading her custom jewelry for a prison uniform. And John walked away with his dignity, his life rebuilt, and the absolute certainty that the truth never stays buried. Every person watching this needs to understand a fundamental rule of life. A castle built on lies will eventually crush the people living inside it. You can run from the truth, you can dress it up in gold and diamonds, but betrayal has an expiration date. John didn't win by fighting them in the shadows. He won by dragging their secrets into the blinding light. If this story made you believe that karma never misses an address, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Because in our next story, the betrayal doesn't come from a spouse or a best friend. It comes from the one person whose job was to protect you. And when the truth comes out, the consequences are going to shake you to your core.